Hi, my name is Jeff, and welcome to my YouTube channel, For Pause. Today I'd like to introduce to you a terminal-based utility application that I wrote that generates 5 different reports from your GitHub repo issues. So with that said, I'd like to demo the 5 reports for you in both Markdown and text, and then talk about some of the command line options that are available, as well as any other things that I might think of towards the end. Well, thank you for joining me, and let's get on with the show. Yeah. So the first report I'd like to demonstrate is the list report in Markdown. So here is the output that was generated, and let's render this in the browser. There we go. This is a list of all issues in descending issue number order. In this case, it's a default heading. It's always the name of the repo. And each issue has a state, its number, its description, one or more labels, one or more assignees, and a milestone. State of X means it is still open, and a check mark indicates that the issue is closed. Markdown reports happen to be interactive, as you see when I hover my pointer over one of the elements on the report, it turns into a pointer, and that means if you click the heading, it takes you back to the code page of the repo. For the description, it will take you back to the actual issue itself. For documentation, it will give you all the open and closed issues for that label. For assignee, it will take you back to the repo and give you a list of all open and closed issues for that assignee. And for milestone, back to the repo with a list of all issues that are open and closed for that milestone. The next report that I'd like to demonstrate is the milestone report in Markdown. And let's render this in the browser. Oops. Don't know why I'm having difficulty doing this today. Oh, you know why? It's already there. There we go. So here we have all the milestones and their issues. And again, these are interactive, and you can click on them, and as we saw in the list report, the little clicking will take you back to the repo, to their associated information. The next report I'd like to demonstrate is the milestone label report. So let me render that in the browser now. So here we have labels, all the issues by label, and all the labels by milestone. So this is the assignee report. Let me render it in the browser. And here we can see the assignee, which in this case is me, because I'm currently the only developer on Snitch, in the Snitch project. And we have all the issues under that by assignee. Last but not least, I'll render the label report, and we can take a look at that. And here we have all the issues that are bucketed by label. Freaking change bug. Yeah, these are all the labels that Snitch uses. So that is it. That is it for the Markdown reports. Now I will give you a quick overview of what these reports look like in text when they're rendered as plain text. The list report, when rendered as plain text, looks like this. And the milestone report, when rendered as text, looks like this. And the milestone label report, when rendered as text, looks like this. And the assignee report, when rendered as text, looks like this. And the label report, when rendered as text, looks like this. So those are the 5 reports, as you've seen, in both Markdown and in text format. So the next thing I'd like to go over is a quick overview of the command line options, because there are quite a few. So now I'd like to review the command line options that are available to you. Move this a little bit, my keyboard over a little bit so I can see. Okay. So as we saw, to generate the text-based reports that we reviewed together, you would add the as text command line option. Otherwise, if you leave that out, it defaults to Markdown. And by the way, this is a version 3. This is being introduced in version 3, which, as I'm doing this video, is not currently out yet. But by the time that you see this video, it should be out. Matter of fact, I guarantee you it will be out. Another new command line option for version 3 is blank lines. And in the current version, not version 3, but the current version, each issue is separated by a blank line. And that severely, impacts your vertical space. So now if you want blank lines, it's optional. Okay. If you omit blank lines, the report is no blank lines, as we saw when I demonstrated each report. Debug option is something I will discuss in a moment. The heading is an option that I will actually demo for you when I show you how easy it is to create a changelog with Snitch. Max issues is this will take a moment to explain. So Snitch relies and requires the GitHub CLI. Of course, it requires Node.js because it is a Node app, but it calls into the GitHub CLI to obtain the JSON payload returned from its query of the repo. And that's what Snitch is processing. So I'm not sure what the actual limit imposed, but the default number or the max limit is on the number of issues that GitHub will include in its payload. But by setting this max issue to a number, which is currently 10,000, you can have a little bit more control of that. So for instance, if you wanted to only show the first 3 issues or something, you could set this or whatever to a very low number. Now, this may appear to you to be, wow, a large number, wow, 10,000 issues. Would you be surprised if I told you that there are very popular repos on GitHub that have hundreds of thousands of issues? So yeah, so if you're dealing with one of those repositories, you'd have to obviously set this to a much higher number. The name option is, we saw that when we were generating our reports, we name them. If you omit that, then it will default to list. to the list report. No heading is a new option for version 3, and that will omit the heading altogether. There'll be no heading applied to the report. Non-interactive is interesting. As we saw, the Markdown reports were interactive. So by including non-interactive, the links will be omitted and the report will be non-interactive. No attribution. So at the end of the report, there's a little attribution linking back to Snitch's repo on GitHub. But if for some reason you find that extremely distasteful that a open source project would, have some attribution there to back to itself, if that's really an issue for you, you can use this flag, this option to turn that off and exclude the attribution. But as an open source developer, I would hope that you would choose not to use this option. And repo, this is important. Okay, so we weren't using this option, dash repo, and then you would include a path to the repo. If you exclude this, then you have to be running the Snitch from within a directory that in its path has a .git folder. And it will use the .github repository associated with the current project determined by Git remote origin. So, for instance, I can be in a folder for one project and issue a report for another project. And state, as we saw, can be all open or closed, and it limits reporting to issues with this state, and it defaults to all. So so as we saw, you definitely want to redirect to the output to a file. But as I mentioned, there is this debug option, and that is for debugging, getting some important information back when their Snitch is not returning something that matches what your expectation of it should be returning. You can use the debug option as here shown, and it will return its Snitch's configuration as it is dynamically created by what you entered on the command line, as well as the command line that it sends to the GitHub CLI utility to return a payload of JSON. Use debug if you want to make an issue on for GitHub, or for for Snitch. You want to make a file an issue with me, just make sure to include the debugging information. Another thing I'd like to mention is report sensitivity, and I'll just read this off because I think it makes more sense. When generating a report other than the list report, you might see a warning like this. Okay, and what that warning is telling you is that some issues were excluded from the report because they didn't meet the report's requirements. For example, if you generate a milestone report and there are issues that haven't been assigned a milestone, then those issues will be excluded from the report. So this tells you actually 2 issues out of a total of 53 do not meet the requirements for this assignee report. So it's only for the reports that are not the list report, because they all of those have expectations that issues meet their requirements, and we'll exclude those issues that don't. So the last thing I'd like to do is demonstrate to you how easy it is to make a changelog. So let's do that right now. As I mentioned, I want to show you how easy it is to create a changelog. So And we're going to use some additional command line options to do that. So we're going to run Snitch. We're going to name the report that we want to use. And for my case, I like to use the list report. And I also want to give it a heading. And I want to give a heading of changelog. And because it is a changelog, okay, I'm not reporting open issues. I'm only reporting closed issues. And I'm redirecting the output to changelog.md. So when we run that, we come here and we render this in the browser. We get what you would expect. We get only closed issues, which is what you would expect in a changelog. You're not going to want to see open issues in a changelog. All right. So that's how easy it is. Anybody who's ever had to create reports or a changelog by hand, by going in, manually, by going into your repo back and forth into a file, cutting and pasting issues from your repo into a local file, and then you would have to filter out or format or maybe sort them or for whatever reason, or bucket them, under, a milestone, a label, or an assignee. It knows how just time consuming and laborious a task that is. And why do that? So I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to do something about it. And I created Snitch, and I hope you find some utility in Snitch. And I hope you enjoyed this content. And if you did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel for Pause, and sharing the link for this video or for my channel with your coworkers, your friends, anyone that you know who may be a developer. Yeah, a little plug. I'm sorry. I had to get this in because it really does help. The YouTube algorithm is getting very, very weird and strict, and so every like and every subscription will definitely go a long way to help the channel and help me, encourage me to keep going. I have other projects that I'm working on, by the way. I have a static website generator called fusion.ssg. I'll be making some content, not immediately, but within a month or two, because that is going to have a major release, a new version coming out within maybe 2 months. Because I need to take a break after releasing Snitch version 3.0.0. I do need a little mental vacation, and but I'll be back. Might post more content about Snitch. By the way, if you have any questions, please leave them, below. Leave your, comments below. I will answer them. Okay, I will definitely. I will not ignore your questions. All right. And if you would, like to see me making some additional content for Snitch, please let me know what it is that you would like. And one other thing I failed to mention. Snitch currently not only, but supports five major reports. Okay. Should you have a need for a report that isn't covered now, file an issue with me on Snitch's repo, and give as much detail about the report that you would like to see. And if it makes sense to me, and it makes sense to you, and makes sense to others, I will definitely, in earnest, I will give your request consideration. And we'll have a chat. We'll talk it over and see how we can work things out. So thank you for watching. This went much longer than I had hoped it to go, but I'm not used to making videos. I'm especially not used to having my face on the camera. And I get a little nervous. I don't know why. It's silly, right? I'm the only one here. It's just me and my computer, but I don't know. It's like white coat syndrome if you've ever went to a doctor's office and wondering why your blood pressure is so high. It doesn't make sense. It's just all a mental thing. But again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this, and take care. See you soon.